Hello, everybody. I'm April Brown with Zelkin Financial Services, and I'm back. Today, I'm on a video with Bianca Murphy. We're here to talk about my decade series. And so I'm on the 30s, and Bianca graciously and was willing to, be interviewed for this. And so I'm going to turn it over to Bianca because I'd like for her to introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Bianca Murphy. I am 31 years old. I am a full-time teacher. So I've
But
been teaching for about 10 years.
wow, okay.
Yeah, and also a massage therapist, and I've been doing that about 4 or 5 years now. So
Okay, so you got that side hustle and you teaching.
little
Honey,
side
first
hustle.
kudos to you for teaching the children. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. I'm just saying thank you. I watched this lady on Facebook, and she apparently was a former teacher, and she has got jokes for days. And I was like,
Oh yeah,
okay.
you'd be
Yeah.
surprised the things we have to deal with.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So today we're on, and like I said, we're talking about the decade series, and we're in the 30s. And so I've got one question to ask you, Bianca. My one question is this: what have been the most, or what have been the three most important issues around finances that you want to address?
Ooh, there are a few, but top three, I would say, is dealing with loan debt, um, having that financial stability, having that like good credit, and then like thinking about, your future buying a home.
Okay, so let's talk about the first one. So the
Okay.
first one you said was, what is it? Loan debt. Now we know that 2020 was hell for a lot of people. However, what ended up happening was they actually allowed for people to just kind of stop paying on their student loans.
Right.
And so because people were allowed to stop paying on their student loans, then we were like out of commission for what, 1 2 years. So now we're
Mhm.
into 2024, but at least I think what people started having to pay back loans in 2023.
Yes.
Yes. So when you've been like 2 years without paying, and then some of that is 2 years of not necessarily having a steady income, and then you look up and you're like, wait, did you add extra interest on that? What in the hell
Exactly.
is going on? I thought y'all were going to stop the interest too.
Exactly.
Oh, but no, it all kept going in terms of the deferment. Oh, okay. And so you're looking at that and you're like, well, how do I pay that thing off? And so
Exactly.
of course, student loans and just loan debt has been a big topic and a big issue. But this is what I will say about this. Um, and I've talked about this in my 20s when I did the 20s for the 20s decade.
Hmm.
Budget, budget. I know it's a dirty word. I know it is. And I know it's hard because people are like,
Very.
what? I got to do that. But I'm going to tell you, you got a budget, because if you understand what kind of money you've got coming in, and you know what your money, how much money you've got going out, then you're able to really be able to sit down and determine, okay, I can't pay this, but this is what I can pay. And
Right.
then you call them and say, listen, you can't get blood out of a turnip.
Exactly.
Right? So this is what I can pay, and this is what I'm going to do. And can we work this out? And so I know that they got that loan forgiveness where you pay for 10 years consecutively
Mhm.
on time, and then they forgive it. But I recently read somewhere where like 10% of the people are able to get the loan forgiven after 10 years.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
it's something crazy going on with it.
Yeah.
So with that said, even if you decide to go that route, that is one route. But also the other thing too is, there are some debt elimination programs out there that really talk about, okay, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it, so on and so forth. So that might be something that you think about. However, it still boils down to what? The B word,
Budget.
budget.
Yeah,
You gotta have it.
that's
You
right.
just gotta have it. And I know people are just like, there she go, talk about that. I stress and harp on it because if you get into the habit of doing it now, as you get older, it makes it so much easier. I recently had a conversation with a woman who, like, didn't make a lot of money, but when I say she saved like hell, she saved like
Really?
hell. And
Wow.
I was impressed. I was like, wait, how much did you have saved? And she said it, and I said, do you have like a side hustle or something? She was
Right.
like, no, I just pay all my bills. I don't buy anything. I don't overspend. I
Right.
don't, so on and so forth. She was just really a stickler about certain things. So, not that she was cheap or frugal, but she spent within her means, and she
Right.
just did outside of it. And if she wanted something, she saved until she could purchase it outright. That's probably what's kept her out of trouble.
Yeah.
Credit cards and that kind of debt and those types of debt. And
Yes.
so another piece too, in reference to student loans and just loans, loans, because it's primarily student loans. You
Hmm.
we go out here and we get the debt to go to school, not understanding that the trade-off has to be you got to make money in order to pay that back.
Correct.
So if that paycheck is not matching what you spent, to pay that off, then
Hmm.
that creates a whole another set of issues
Absolutely.
not necessarily thinking about. So, if you got like $50,000 in student debt loan, you have to actually in your budget incorporate, okay, how do I knock this down? How do that I pay this off? I don't want to take 30 years
Right.
to pay the student loan off. So, how do I pay it off in a short amount of time that I'm not paying so much on the interest? Because what
Hmm.
kills you is the interest
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're having to pay. Hell, if it's
Yeah.
just only $50,000 that you got to pay and you knock that out, but when you
Right.
tack 20 something percent interest rate, or whatever the interest, 5%, 10%, whatever the interest rate is, then that's where you're like, okay, it can be problematic if you have not budgeted. So
Yeah. Yeah.
budgeting.
Okay.
Yeah. The second piece that you said was what is it? Financial stability. So financial stability. I'm gonna say this. That's where that B word come back in. Budgeting. That helps towards financial stability.
Yeah.
One, just like I said, if you know how much money you got coming in, how much money you got coming out, then you can determine, okay, this is what I can save. But I'm going to say this in
Mhm.
terms of the financial stability piece. In order for you to save and create wealth, you got to get rid of credit card debt.
Yeah.
If you can get rid of that auto loan, get rid of that auto loan and
Yeah.
the loans. Because anything with high interest is going to eat up whatever you're saving. So let's say
Right.
you got like $1,500 saved, and you got it saved over in let's say a high yield savings. You're earning 5%. Yay, smart.
Hmm.
But you got a credit card payment that's charging you 35%, and that costs you $1,500 just to pay the thing off. You might
Exactly.
as well $1,500 pay the credit card off and you're coming out on top
Yeah. Yeah.
because you no longer have to deal with that 35% interest rate.
Exactly.
So when you're doing comparisons and just thinking about these things, really look at what you're paying for in that interest rate. And if you saved X amount, hell, because if you got $5,000 and 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 you got an interest rate that's more than what your money is earning, you might as well just pay off the high interest rate. Pay
Yeah.
that off. That's going to create wealth for you because that's paid off, and then you can just rebuild back to your 5,000, and now
Mhm.
your 5,000 is 5,000 and
Actually,
something
5,000. Right.
to pay for a
Mm.
credit card bill
Right.
or this or that whatever. And so, however, I'm sure you're like, that's nice, April. Thank you so much. I still want to build some wealth. So my question for you is, now that you have a real job, you've been doing it for 10 years,
Um,
are you building into your wealth? Meaning, are you paying into any qualified plans? Are you doing those types of things?
um, probably not like I should be.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Yeah. So let me
So,
say this. as a suggestion, food
Yes.
for thought,
Uh-huh.
your qualified plan. So you know what I mean when I say qualified plans.
No. What do you mean?
So qualified plans are 401ks,
Okay.
457s, 403bs,
Yeah.
pensions fall into qualified plans. So if you, like for instance, in the state of North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a teacher, you probably should get a pension.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a pension, North Carolina is going to take X amount of percent out of your paycheck every year. That's going towards your pension.
Right.
However, you also can have access to um, a 401k. So a pension is defined as the defined benefits plan, which means it is based on a formula. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's a multiplier times either your time, years of service plus or times your the highest 4 years that
Okay.
you. So that's how that benefits plan. There's some of them are different. Some of them have some other multipliers and other things going on. But for the most part, it's a formula. A
Okay.
defined contribution plan is what is a 401k or 457 or 403b. And so that defined contribution plan, employer based also, both of them. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens is they can either have a match in them or no match, but you
Mm-hmm.
can put into that. And you can put up to, I think, whatever's minimum, like minimum, whatever you put in. So
Right.
if it's like, I talked to somebody who only put $25 in, some people put 100, some people put more, some people max it out. It just depends on what you're willing to set aside. So
Mm-hmm.
in all of that, the opportunity is this. You can put in what you can, and
Mm-hmm.
as you your money bumps up, you can always add more to it. And so with those types of qualified plans, that is where the bulk of most Americans save their wealth. That is how they're able to create wealth in that. And so there are two things. Your
Mm-hmm.
house. So purchase a home, but we'll talk about that later. That's another wealth building piece because it gains equity.
Mm-hmm.
So in the qualified plans, if you have access to one and you can go ahead and set aside money, do that. And
Yeah.
just being strategic and smart about what you're trying to do, because the bottom line is this: you're responsible for your retirement,
Mm-hmm.
period. Now,
Yeah.
your pension is going to get you something, that's the start, but it's definitely not going to be enough for you to live off of.
Right.
It won't. And
Yes.
so, and what happens is most people, by the time they get ready to retire, where they're at in terms of what they're making is
Mm-hmm.
really what I continue to make. Now, some people want less, some people like, I really want more, but for the most part, it just depends on what I'm finding that most people are like, where I'm at is comfortable. Okay, well, in order for you to get there, you got to have a plan. So, what does that plan look like?
Right.
So, if you have access to the qualified plan, go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and put it, because it's a way to just kind of build. And if
Yeah.
they've got to, you never leave money on the table. Never. I tell people never leave money on the table. Now,
Right.
with
Yeah.
all of that said, if you do have money that's, that you can get, you don't leave money on the table. So if they're willing to match, take the
That's it.
match.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of your money, you might be able to do some other stuff with. And there's some other things that you can do. And
Okay.
so, but that's a different conversation. That's
Okay.
another, we can talk further. And so
Okay.
everybody is different. Everybody has something different that they want to do, but it's
Yeah.
really owning and really creating a plan that's going to work for you in terms of what you're trying to do. Make
And
sense?
yes, and I have done that. I wish I had done it actually earlier when I first started my career, but being what, 22, I wasn't even thinking about that at the
Right.
time. But I do have that in place now, and they're able to, like you said, match at my job.
Wonderful.
So that's nice. But I wish I had thought about that early on.
Well, this is one of the conversation pieces that I have with people
Uh-huh.
is you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And so when you go into, and you get a job and you go to fill out the paperwork, there's nobody on staff who's like a financial planner or advisor saying, listen, honey, you might want to go ahead and put, like, if you can only put $25 in, start now, because it's that compound interest. So what
Mhm.
you do at age 19 hell, you never catch up if you start at 10 years later. I mean, you just don't.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
compound interest. So it's okay, but at least you started. And so you're
Exactly.
understanding, okay, I got to do this. And so part of the piece about all of this too is really understanding finances and how they play into what you're trying to do and how you're trying to, and they're important. Period.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
important. Can't do nothing without them. So you were talking about
Exactly.
credit, like, stability. So that financial stability piece, if your credit's jacked up, you can't get nothing. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
not that your credit, but I'm
Right.
telling you, if you like, we don't know what we don't know. So if you don't keep your credit, like, that's got to be sacred, and you've got to keep
Absolutely.
that protected.
Yeah.
So get a card, whatever you're doing, whatever kind of loan you get, pay it back. Not only pay it back, but pay it back on time.
Yeah.
And actually, there are a couple of other tricks that you could do with that in terms of paying it on time, but paying it before then. And so the interest doesn't accumulate.
Right.
So, but that, like I said, conversation, and that comes with some real planning. So
Yeah.
does that, give you some feedback and some information in terms of financial stability?
Absolutely.
All right. And so the last one is purchasing a home.
Woo.
So, Bianca, in this crazy ass market right now,
Yeah, I know.
crazy. So a couple of things have happened. I have a friend who's a realtor, a really good friend, one of my best friends, and she actually has sold me both houses. She's
Wow.
Yeah, she was the person I actually bought my house with her because she was my realtor when I purchased my home. She was my realtor when I sold my home. So she's been that person, and she'll probably be the realtor when I get my next house.
Exactly.
So with that said, we're always talking about these things because she's just, seen the market come and go and the ebbs and flows of it. And
Yeah.
she was just like, nobody is selling their home. Not
Yeah.
when you were able to purchase a home with a very low interest rate. And so the thing about low interest rates are
Hmm.
you're able to get more home with a low interest rate.
Hmm.
So more square footage. When
Yeah.
it's high interest rates, you ain't trying to buy the more home. You're just not. And
Yeah.
so even now the interest rates are, high. They high. And she was just like, however, this is the time to buy. And I was like, you're right. It is the time to buy because you're getting it at a high interest rate.
Uh-huh.
You're not going to buy more house than what you can afford.
Right.
One, purchase that. And then when the interest rates go down like a point to 2 points, then
Hmm.
you refi.
Right.
And if you refi, I mean, refi will knock off a couple of hundred. It'll knock off some money. So
Yeah.
a full point to 2 points will knock off of quite a bit of money in terms of what you pay out for your mortgage. Now, if you like, for those people who got their mortgage at like 2.5%,
Hmm.
and they're like, I've got to pay my house off. I'm going to say, why would you pay your house off if you got a mortgage rate for 2.5%? However, that credit card is at 29.9%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here again, interest rates mean
Right.
they mean something, they matter.
Hmm.
So as opposed to like quickly trying to pay off a house, it makes more sense for you to just quickly pay off that credit card.
Right.
However, I digress. That's the matter at hand. You're like, okay, how do I get myself in a position to do a home purchase?
Hmm.
So a couple of things. Your credit score has got to be like A1. Like seven, like what is anything 700 above,
Hmm.
you really want that.
Yeah.
Because what that 700 and above credit score will get you is a better interest rate. So interest rates, they do matter. That's why that
Hmm.
credit score matters. So that's
Hmm.
one. That's
Okay.
that's the first. Secondly, have your 20% down. Have that. Have that 20% down. So
Yeah.
when you purchase that home, you only have to pay for 80%. Now, what has been happening or what's happened, what I don't know if it's happening now, but
Hmm.
they were asking for crazy, like, what is it? The due diligence. So people
Hmm.
were like $100,000 of due diligence money. I was like, oh, So the due diligence still works towards your the purchase of your home.
Right.
It's like $100,000 for that down payment. You gave it due diligence to the person, so you like, listen,
Right.
that is my down payment. So
Right.
it's food for, just as I say, food for thought. But the bottom line is you do want to have that 20%. I mean,
Yeah.
it's have it, because if all you have to do is pay the 80% on the home,
Yeah.
then that's just going to be less stress for you, I think.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how do you get that 20%? And so if you're trying to buy a home that's $200,000, just to keep the numbers simple,
Mm-hmm.
percent is like $40,000, and you're like, "Ooh, well, where am I going to? I'm gonna make that happen." So that's where you have to be budgeting, and you got to strategically plan. Now,
Yeah.
there are things that you can do probably to put that in place, but you just got to plan for that, and you got to see what that looks like. And so if you have products and assets that you can tap into to get that money, that's something great. But for the most people, they don't, and they got to figure out how to make this happen. And
Exactly.
so, not to say that you can't do the 100%, but the problem with the 100% is it comes with the insurance. It's I can't remember the name of it, but it's an insurance that they charge you
Okay.
that gets tacked on um to your monthly mortgage payment
Okay.
for them to, because you're not coming in with the 20%. So I'm gonna say, in terms of purchasing a home,
Mm-hmm.
you to go in eyes wide open. So you want to know what you need to know. So you need to
Yeah.
understand that credit report, having
Yeah.
that 20% down. And if you don't, if you got to get it from some, because if you're a first time home buyer, now
Mm-hmm.
they've got all the programs out here. Well, I don't know if they're still out here, but they did, where
Right.
they would give you your 20% down payment for your first home.
Okay.
So also be looking out for those types of things too. So you
Right.
may really have access to that money, or you may have not saved that much, or whatever you saved is still not going to get you to over the hump. However, look for programs that are out here that may have the first time home buyers.
Right.
Um, because for most Americans, like, their home is one of their it's a major purchase.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's equity. So as homes build equity and it builds over time, it's still equity. So if
Right.
you purchase your first home, you stay in your home, you retire as a teacher, and you look up when your home is paid for, and now you own it outright. There are other things that you do, because how do you tap into the equity of that? So those
Right.
are conversation. But just be
Right.
thinking. And so credit, your down payment, and making sure, and your budget, as we talked about, and
Keyword.
also the B word, and also understanding just kind of where you are financially. So that this is, what you make, they'll tell you what you can qualify for. So you can always hop online and look at what you qualify for.
Right.
The catch is, do you want to pay that mortgage? That's the catch.
Mm-hmm.
One. Two, you never want your mortgage to be more than, I want to say, it's running like a third of your money,
Right.
or too much, but I want to say either a third or less.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have 2/3 of your money to just be able to be free and clear to do whatever you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because you got to remember, if you get the mortgage, you got the utilities, you got it, and insurance is built into your mortgage. So you got
Mm-hmm.
utilities, your insurance on other stuff, you've got food, you've got entertainment, you've got all these other bills
Yeah.
that probably will increase based off the fact that you purchased a home. Because if you're in an apartment or you're renting something, certain things are, may be added into the rent itself.
Right.
So, that's what you've got to also think about. That's why a budget
Mm-hmm.
so important. So if you know what you want to spend, and what your optimal level of terms of uh where your budget falls, and this is where you want to fall into, and then you want to have this amount of money left over, because part of it too is you got the student loans that you got to pay, so you got to add that into the equation. So all of these things that you're, money going out, that's why it's important to have a budget, to
Exactly.
understand, if you add the rent gets replaced by a mortgage, what additional costs am I going to incur?
Right.
And so you want to come in, that's why I said eyes wide open, really understanding what's going on, what you're looking at. And then so when you're looking, you're like, nope, that's real pretty. What?
Right.
This is above my budget.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And
Got
so
to be realistic.
you gotta be realistic. And the other piece I'm gonna challenge you to also think about is this. You want a home, but it may not be your first. Your first home may not be a house. It could potentially be a condo, or it could
Right.
potentially be a townhome. And
Right.
so, and then you have that, and you're like, okay, now I'm in a position, I've been here for about 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever. Now I'm ready to bump up to a home because,
Right.
certain things may have happened and transpired. So now
Right.
you're ready to move. But in terms of, home buying, it doesn't necessarily have to be a house, because with a house also
Mhm.
comes yard work,
Absolutely.
cutting down trees, keeping the
Yeah.
squirrels off, those types of things.
Yeah.
So those are costs that people don't necessarily think about because they're like, "Oh, I can't wait to buy my house." So
Right.
just you got to, the other additional incurred costs that you didn't think about that you should
That's
think about.
true.
So
Yeah.
with a condo, that's you might have to pay homeowners dues.
Uh-huh.
So potentially. Or if you're in a townhome, homeowners dues, because they're supposed to pay for X, Y, and Z. But
Right.
if you house, if you move into a community where you have homeowners dues, that's another added piece.
Right.
So just I'm gonna challenge you to just think about, okay, I want to do this. This is what I gotta think about. This is
Yeah.
what I need to, focus on, and then understand what where I am at and what I want to do. So you might be like, well, 2024 is not the year.
Right.
Maybe it's going to be 2025, but I will tell you, don't wait for the interest rates to drop down. I mean, if you want to purchase. Because right now you see the prices they're dropping because,
Hmm.
rates high. And people are like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not buying a house for $710,000.
Exactly.
That's 8%.
Yeah.
No.
Immediately
So
no.
right. So you're just kind of like, what? And
Yeah.
then, the other thing is my friend would say, you don't have to live in, wherever you're living at, just you ain't got to be in the same city. I was like, where else am I gonna live?
Right.
Like, well, this, there are other surrounding towns. I was like, they all expensive as hell too.
It's all high.
What are you talking about? And then we just chuckle about it. So does that answer your question? Give you some feedback, some, ideas about what to think about in terms of buying a home?
Yes. Hmm. I think that's motivating me. I got to get my B word together and, and tap into those resources that you mentioned. Do my research.
Yeah,
Uh,
because you'd be surprised. I mean, when I bought my first house, and that was a while back, it was at the end of the 20th century. My first home, I did do the home buyer, the first time home buyers plan.
Okay.
So, and I also got um, did I qualified for a down payment also, like for both. I did both, and
Nice.
and it was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
And however, what I didn't think about was the community I moved to, which was nice.
Uh-huh.
However, it had homeowners dues, and I was like, homeowners dues.
Like,
It was like
no.
I was like, what? Some more expense incurred? Are you kidding me? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's the
That's
all the extra that we don't necessarily think about. So it is.
exactly.
But like I said, budget, and it just requires you actually planning and
Yeah.
really thinking about, just this is where I'm at, what's most important, um, and how soon do I want to do this? How soon can I do this?
Hmm.
And if I can't do it soon, then this is the goal. This is the amount of money I want to have saved, so on and so forth, and just kind of
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah.
So, all right, this was very cool. Thank you, Bianca.
Yes. Thank you. This has been helpful.
good. Because I've been talking about it, and I actually said budget in my recording for the third. That's pretty cool. So I'm like, I'm on track. I'm on track. Sometimes when you're my age, you're like, I remember being in my 30s. And I remember this is what I thought. And I was like, but we're in the 21st century. I was in the 20th century, latter part. They might have a different thought than me. And
Right.
so, I was like, okay, I'm not too far off. So
Exactly.
otherwise, thank you so much
Thank
for
you. I need all of your contact info because I will be in touch more.
oh, of course, because Zelkin Financial Services LLC is here to help. We are here to help. Thank you, Bianca, for being willing to come on my YouTube channel and have a conversation with me about finances and the issues and what you think about from day to day. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And so I am April Brown with Zelkin Financial Services LLC. And thank you. Until the next time.